I want to tell you something that took me a long time to understand. There is a point, a specific point in a person's life where discipline stops being a battle, where waking up early stops being a fight, where doing the hard thing stops requiring courage, where the work that used to demand everything you had starts happening as naturally as breathing. Most people never reach that point, not because they are weak, not because they are lazy, but because they never understood what was actually happening inside their minds when they struggled with discipline. They thought discipline was about willpower. They thought it was about motivation. They thought that some people were simply born with more of it and others were born with less, and that was that. That is not how it works. Discipline is a trained response. It is a groove. It is a pattern burned into the architecture of your mind through repetition, through consistency, through deliberate daily practice. And like any trained response, the more you practice it, the less it costs you. The goal is not to become a person who forces themselves to be disciplined every single day. The goal is to become a person for whom discipline is simply the natural way of operating. And today I want to show you how to get there. Let me start with something I want you to think about carefully. Your mind right now is already trained. It is already running patterns. It already has grooves, deep grooves that it defaults to in every moment of choice. The question is not whether your mind has been trained. It has been. The question is, who did the training? For most people, the answer is not a pretty one. For most people, the mind was trained by convenience, by the easiest available option, by the path of least resistance, chosen again and again, until that path became automatic. Every morning you stayed in bed when you should have gotten up. That was training. Every time you picked up the phone instead of doing the work, that was training. Every afternoon you said, I will start tomorrow. That was training. The mind learned from all of it. The mind built a groove, and the groove leads away from discipline, toward comfort, toward delay, toward the familiar feeling of doing exactly what requires the least from you. Now here's what I need you to understand. That groove can be replaced, not erased, not forgotten entirely, but replaced by a deeper groove, a stronger groove, one that runs in the direction of your goals, in the direction of your potential, in the direction of the life you say you want. But replacing a groove does not happen by wanting to. It does not happen by reading books about discipline, or watching videos about success, or making promises to yourself every Sunday night. It happens by training, deliberate, consistent, patient training. The same way you train a muscle, the same way a farmer works the soil. The farmer does not plant the seed and stand over it demanding it grow faster. The farmer prepares the soil. The farmer plants at the right time. The farmer waters consistently. The farmer trusts the process. And at the appointed time, the harvest comes. Your mind works the same way. Prepare the conditions, do the daily work, trust the process, and at the appointed time, something remarkable happens. Discipline stops feeling like effort. Now, let me walk you through what that training actually looks like. Because I have observed this pattern, not just in my own life, but in the lives of every successful person I have ever studied. Every person who built something extraordinary. Every person who looked from the outside like they had some gift the rest of us were missing. They did not have a gift. They had a trained mind. And the training went through stages. Predictable, identifiable stages. And if you understand those stages before you go through them, you will not be surprised. You will not quit. You will not mistake a difficult stage for a permanent condition. The first stage is what I call the resistance stage. This is where most people live. This is the stage where every single act of discipline is a battle, where getting up early feels like a punishment, where sitting down to work feels like pushing a boulder up a steep hill with wet hands. In the resistance stage, every decision costs you something, because your mind has not yet accepted the new pattern as normal. It knows the old groove is there. It knows comfort is available. And every time you try to do something disciplined, your mind sends up a protest, a resistance, a negotiation. And let me tell you something about that negotiation. Your undisciplined mind is a very persuasive negotiator. It does not argue loudly. It does not tell you directly, do not do this. It is more subtle than that. It says, not right now, but soon. It says, you deserve a rest first. It says, you are not feeling your best today, maybe start tomorrow when you are sharper. It says 5 more minutes will not hurt anyone. And the 5 minutes becomes an hour. And the hour becomes the afternoon. And the afternoon becomes another day added to the long list of days where you meant to do something and did not. That is the resistance stage. And if you are there right now, I want you to hear this clearly. That is not failure. That is stage 1. That is where every person who ever built a disciplined life began. The difference between the people who escaped the resistance stage and the people who never did is not talent. It is not willpower. It is simply this. The people who escaped knew it was a stage, not a sentence. Now let me tell you about stage 2, the grind stage. In the grind stage, the resistance is weakened, but it has not disappeared. You are still fighting, but the fight is shorter. The negotiation still happens, but you win it more often. You wake up, you feel the pull toward comfort, and then you act anyway. And acting anyway, over and over, is what deepens the new groove. The grind stage is not glamorous. Nobody talks about the grind stage in their success stories. They talk about the beginning, when they were inspired. And they talk about the end, when the results arrived. But the grind stage, the long middle where nothing feels certain and the results are not yet visible and the sacrifice is very real, that part they skip. But that part is everything. That is where the character is formed. That is where the new identity is built. Not in the moments of inspiration. Not in the moments of victory. In the grind stage. In the quiet, unglamorous, unrewarded mornings when you did the work anyway. I remember something my mentor said to me many years ago when I was struggling with consistency. He said, Jim, do not wish it were easier. Wish you were better. I have thought about that almost every day since. Do not wish the grind stage were shorter. Do not wish the results came faster. Wish you were the kind of person who could endure the grind stage with patience and with faith and with daily discipline. Because that kind of person, the one who earns the grind stage, becomes extraordinary. And the grind stage, if you do not quit, leads somewhere remarkable. It leads to what I call the groove stage. The groove stage is where things begin to shift. In the groove stage, the new pattern has been cut deep enough that the mind begins to default to it. Not always. Not perfectly. But increasingly, almost without deciding, you find yourself doing the disciplined thing. The alarm goes off. You get up, not because you summoned your courage, not because you remembered your goals and your reasons. You get up because that is what happens at this time of day now. It is familiar. It is the groove. You sit down to work. You start without negotiating, not because you feel great, not because you feel motivated, but because sitting down to work at this time is simply what you do now. And here is how you know you have entered the groove stage. Missing a day starts to feel worse than doing the work. Think about that. When you first started trying to build discipline, skipping a workout felt like relief. Missing a reading session felt like freedom. Taking the day off felt like a reward. But in the groove stage, something has reversed. Now skipping feels uncomfortable. Missing feels like something is wrong. Not showing up for your goals creates more internal friction than showing up ever did. That reversal, that shift in what feels natural, is one of the most important moments in a person's development. And most people never reach it because they gave up during the grind stage. Do not give up during the grind stage. The groove is on the other side of the grind. And the groove changes everything. And beyond the groove is the final stage, the identity stage. This is where discipline stops feeling like effort. In the identity stage, the trained behaviors are no longer behaviors you do. They are behaviors that define who you are. You do not have to motivate yourself to study. You are a person who studies. You do not have to push yourself to do the work. You are a person who works. You do not have to remind yourself of your goals. You are a person who lives in alignment with those goals every single day. That is an entirely different experience of discipline. In the resistance stage, discipline is something imposed on you from outside, by your goals, by your guilt, by your desire to change. It costs you every day. In the identity stage, discipline is something that comes from inside, from who you have become through the training. And it costs you almost nothing. Because acting in alignment with your identity never costs very much. It is acting against your identity that is exhausting. Think about a person who has been a reader their entire life. Do they struggle every evening to pick up a book? Do they need to motivate themselves, remind themselves, argue with themselves about whether to read tonight? No, they pick up the book because that is what they do. That is who they are. Reading is their identity. Now think about a person trying to become a reader for the first time. Every evening is a small battle. I should read. I do not feel like it. I will do it later. Maybe tomorrow. Same activity. Entirely different experience. The difference is not willpower. The difference is identity. Your goal is not to be more disciplined. Your goal is to become a disciplined person. And there is a world of difference between those two things. Doing discipline means fighting yourself every day. Being a disciplined person means acting naturally every day. The training I am about to give you is not about fighting yourself. It is about becoming someone who does not need to fight. Now let me give you the specific practices, the exact work of training your mind. Because understanding the stages is useful, but understanding without doing is worthless. I have always believed that. Knowledge is only potential power. The power comes from application, from practice, from doing the thing. So let us do the thing. The first practice is the minimum viable commitment. I have watched people fail at discipline for one reason more than any other. They try to do too much too soon. They get inspired on a Sunday evening. And they design a perfect week. They will wake at 5 in the morning every day. They will work out for an hour before breakfast. They will journal. They will meditate. They will read a chapter of an important book. They will work without distraction for 6 hours. They will eat perfectly. They will be in bed by 10. And on Monday, they do almost all of it. And they feel tremendous. And on Tuesday, they do about half. And they feel like they are already slipping. And by Thursday, the whole thing has collapsed. And they sit there on Thursday evening looking at the ruins of another perfect plan, and they conclude something terrible about themselves. They conclude that they are simply not a disciplined person. that this kind of life is for other people, not for them. But that is the wrong conclusion. The right conclusion is this: they tried to carry too much weight before they had trained the muscle to carry it. You do not walk into a gym on your first day and load the heaviest barbell in the room. You start with a weight you can lift. You lift it consistently. You add weight gradually. The muscle grows. And eventually you are lifting things that would have been impossible when you began. Your discipline muscle works the same way. So here is the first practice. Find the minimum amount of disciplined action you can commit to showing up for every single day, no matter what. Not the ideal amount, not the impressive amount, the minimum. Maybe it is 15 minutes of focused work on your most important project. Every single day, no matter what else is happening, no matter how you feel, no matter how busy the day is. 15 minutes. That is your minimum viable commitment. Do it every day. 7 days, then 14, then 30, then 60, then 90. At 90 days of consistent 15-minute sessions, something has changed in your mind. The groove is there. The identity has started to shift, and you can begin adding weight, but not before then. Consistency is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. The second practice is environment design. This one is so important that I want you to stop for a moment and really hear it. Most discipline failures do not happen in the middle of the work. They happen at the decision point, the moment before you begin, the moment when your mind presents you with a choice, and the environment around you is either making that choice easier or making it harder. Let me give you an example. Consider a person who keeps their phone on their bedside table at night. When they wake in the morning, before a single intentional thought, before they have decided what kind of day this will be, the phone is right there. And the phone has notifications. And notifications are not accidents. They are the product of the most sophisticated engineering on the planet, designed specifically to capture and hold your attention. And so before that person has taken one deliberate step toward their own goals, their mind has been handed to someone else. Their first attention of the day belongs to someone else's agenda. Their first emotional response, whether it is curiosity or anxiety or entertainment, was programmed by someone else. That is a trained response. But it was not them who did the training. Now consider a different person. This person leaves the phone in another room overnight. They wake to quiet. The first 30 minutes of the morning belong to them entirely. They use those 30 minutes the way they have decided to use them. Reading, writing, moving, planning, whatever they have determined is the highest use of that sacred first hour. Both people have the same 24 hours. Both people have the same biology. But the environments they have created are training their minds in entirely different directions. Your environment is always training you, always, even when you are not aware of it. The question is whether you designed the training intentionally or allowed it to happen by default. So I want you to look at your environment honestly. What does your morning setup train you toward? What does your workspace say about your relationship with focused work? What does your phone home screen suggest about what gets your attention first? These are not small questions. These are the architecture of your daily training. Make the disciplined choice the easy choice. Put the book on your pillow. Set out your workout clothes the night before. Close the unnecessary browser tabs. Turn off the notifications. Put the phone across the room. Every barrier you remove from the right action makes that action more likely. Every barrier you add to the wrong action makes that action less likely. Over time, right actions become automatic simply because they were made available. The disciplined people you admire did not win a willpower contest. They won an environment design contest. The third practice is the identity declaration. The language you use to describe yourself is not neutral. It is actively programming your mind. When you say, I am trying to be more disciplined, your mind hears the word trying. And trying is permission to fail. Trying acknowledges that success is uncertain. Trying is the language of someone who has not yet decided. But there is a different kind of language, the language of decided identity. I am a disciplined person. Say that. Write it down. Repeat it every morning before you begin your day. Not as a lie, as a declaration of direction, as a statement of who you are becoming through the training you are doing. Because here's what I have observed over many years of studying how people change. The mind tends to produce behavior that is consistent with the identity it believes it holds. If you believe at the core level that you are an undisciplined person, your mind will work very hard to prove that belief correct. It will find reasons to skip. It will find justifications for delay. It will construct elaborate arguments for why this particular moment is not the right moment to act. And if you believe at the core level that you are a disciplined person, your mind will work equally hard to prove that belief correct. It will find reasons to act. It will make the consistent choice feel natural. It will produce discomfort when you act against that identity, because acting against your identity always produces discomfort. Feed the identity you want, not the one you are trying to leave behind. Say it clearly. I am a disciplined person. I am someone who shows up every day. I am someone who does what I said I would do. I am building a mind that acts without resistance, a life that reflects who I have chosen to become. Say it before you feel it. The feeling follows the decision. It always does. The fourth practice is the reflection ritual. Every evening before you rest, take 5 minutes for this practice. Ask yourself one question. Did I do what I said I would do today? Not, did I do everything perfectly? Not, did I feel great doing it? Not, was I as productive as the most productive person on the planet? Simply this, did I do what I said I would do today? If the answer is yes, acknowledge it. Do not rush past it. Do not dismiss it as small. Sit with it for a moment. Let your mind register the success. Let the training record the completion. That moment of conscious acknowledgement is more powerful than any reward you could give yourself externally. Because it is your mind learning. It is the groove deepening. It is the identity being reinforced. You did what you said you would do. That matters. That is the whole game. And if the answer is no, do not punish yourself. Do not spiral into the familiar story about what kind of person you are or are not. Simply ask the second question. What specifically happened, and what will I adjust tomorrow? Not why am I like this? Not maybe this is not for me. What specifically happened, and what will I adjust? This is the difference between a person who learns from their training and a person who simply suffers through it. The person who suffers asks, why am I failing? That question has no useful answer. It only produces shame. The person who learns asks, what happened and what changes? That question always has a useful answer. It produces adjustment. And adjustment produces improvement. Do this every evening, 5 minutes. One question, and then either acknowledgement or adjustment. Over weeks and months, this ritual transforms the training from random effort into a deliberate feedback loop. You become a student of your own discipline, and students who study their own patterns improve faster than students who simply try harder without understanding why. The fifth practice is what I call the 90-day horizon. When you are in the resistance stage, when the grind is hard and the results are not yet visible, your focus naturally narrows to today. Today is difficult. Today I do not want to do the work. Today feels like the obstacle. I want to ask you to lift your eyes. Not all the way to the end of your life, just 90 days, 3 months of consistent daily practice. Who is the person who exists 90 days from now, on the other side of 3 months of the minimum viable commitment you made in practice 1? What does that person feel like in the morning? What choices have become automatic for them? What does their relationship with work look like? What has shifted in the way they see themselves? Hold that person in your mind, not as a fantasy, not as wishful thinking, as a destination, as a real person who will exist if you simply show up every day for the next 90 days. The mind navigates differently when it has a clear destination. A ship without a destination drifts. The currents take it wherever they are going. But a ship with a clear destination cuts through those same currents. The captain adjusts the sails. The navigation continues. Every day, progress is made toward the specific place the captain has decided to go. Your mind is the ship. The 90-day version of yourself is the destination. Give your mind that destination. Then do the daily work of navigating toward it. And here is what I promise you, based on everything I have observed in decades of studying how people grow. At 90 days, that person you imagined will exist. They will not be perfect. The training will not be complete. There will still be work to do. But the groove will be there. The identity will have begun to shift. And discipline will already have begun to feel less like effort. Now I want to talk about something that almost nobody discusses when the subject is discipline. The relationship between your mind and the people around you. Because your mind is not trained only by your own choices. It is also trained by the standards of the environment you live and work and spend your time in. I have observed this my entire life. Show me a person's closest associations, and I will show you the ceiling on their discipline. If you spend your days around people who treat mediocrity as normal, who celebrate laziness with humor, who make fun of ambition and call it naive, your mind begins to absorb those standards. Not suddenly, not all at once. Gradually, the way water shapes stone. You do not notice it happening, but it happens. And on the other side, if you spend your days around people who take their standards seriously, who expect of themselves what they say they expect, who wake up early and do the work and read and study and grow, your mind begins to absorb those standards too. This is not a comfortable idea for most people, because it means that some of the relationships in your life may be working against the very discipline you are trying to build. I am not asking you to abandon anyone. I am asking you to be honest with yourself about the standards of the people around you and about how those standards are influencing your own. Find people who are where you want to be. Spend more time around them. Read what they read. Study what they study. Ask them the questions that matter. Not to copy their life, to absorb their standards. Because the mind takes its cues from the environment. Always, including the human environment. Upgrade your associations, and you upgrade the training. Let me give you something else to think about. Something I consider to be one of the most important ideas I have ever encountered. The idea of the compound effect of mental training. Most people understand compound interest in the financial world. They understand that a small amount of money invested consistently over a long period of time at a reasonable rate of return becomes a large amount of money. The mathematics are remarkable. The patience required is significant, but the result is extraordinary. What most people do not understand is that mental training works the same way. Each day you show up for the minimum viable commitment. Each day you do what you said you would do. Each day you choose the disciplined action over the comfortable one. You are making a small deposit into the account of your character. One deposit is nothing. It is invisible. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it. There is no immediate evidence that it mattered. But at 30 deposits, something has begun to change. At 60 deposits, the groove is visible. At 90 deposits, the new pattern is established. At 365 deposits, you have built something extraordinary. A trained mind, a reliable character, a person whose word to themselves is something they can trust completely. The deposits are small. The patience required is significant. But the result is a level of internal freedom that most people never experience. Because here is what the compound effect of mental training actually produces. It produces a person who is free. Not free in the way that lazy people imagine freedom. Not free to do whatever they feel like whenever they feel like it. That kind of freedom leads directly to a life shaped entirely by circumstance. A life with no direction. A life where other people and external forces make all the real decisions because you never trained yourself to make them deliberately. The freedom I am talking about is the freedom of someone whose mind works for them rather than against them, who does not have to fight themselves every morning, who does not waste enormous amounts of energy on the internal negotiation, who shows up, does the work, and then has energy left over for the things that make life genuinely worth living. That is the freedom on the other side of mental training. And it costs you 90 days of consistent practice. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but roughly about 90 days. Is that worth it? Is 3 months of deliberate daily effort worth a lifetime of internal freedom? I believe you already know the answer. Let me spend a moment talking about the mornings, because the morning is where the training is won or lost. I have observed this across many decades of paying attention to how successful people operate. And I have come to believe that the morning is not simply the first part of the day. The morning is the foundation of the day. The morning sets the tone, the standard, the direction for everything that follows. When you win the morning, you do not guarantee a perfect day, but you make a disciplined day far more likely. When you lose the morning, you do not guarantee a failed day, but you make the rest of the day much harder. And winning the morning does not mean waking at 4 in the morning and completing a 2-hour routine before the sun rises. Winning the morning means this: the first intentional action of your day belongs to your goals, not to someone else's agenda. That is it. That is the whole thing. Before the notifications, before the news, before the requests of other people claim your first energy. Your first intentional action goes toward what you have decided matters most. For some people it is reading, for others it is writing, for others it is movement, for others it is focused work on the most important project. It does not matter which one. What matters is that you made the choice, and the choice was deliberate, and the choice belonged to your own goals. Because the mind that begins the day intentionally operates differently from the mind that begins the day reactively. The reactive mind starts behind. It starts in response mode. Someone else set the agenda. Someone else's needs and notifications and requests shape the first minutes. And that mind spends the rest of the day trying to catch up, trying to find a moment that belongs to it, usually never quite succeeding. The intentional mind starts ahead. It starts in creative mode, in ownership mode. It established what the day is for before the chaos of the day arrived. And that mind operates from a position of authority over its own time for the rest of the day. Win the morning. Set the first action deliberately. Make the first 30 minutes yours. Over time, that habit alone will transform the relationship between your mind and your discipline. Here is something I want to close with. Something I have said in different ways many times, but I want to say it clearly here in this context. You will never feel ready. I want you to hear that, because so many people are waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel inspired, waiting for the day when discipline comes naturally, before they have done the training that makes it come naturally. That is waiting for the harvest without planting the seed. It does not work that way. It has never worked that way. And it will not work that way for you. The training starts before you feel ready, before it feels natural, before it feels rewarding. The training starts now, in the place where you are, with the resources you have, with the discipline that currently exists, which is perhaps not much. And that is fine. You start with not much. You show up consistently. You do the minimum viable commitment every single day. You design your environment to support the right actions. You declare the identity you are building. You reflect every evening on what you did and what you will adjust. And day by day, the training produces its results. The groove deepens. The resistance weakens. The identity shifts. The character solidifies. And one day, not distant, closer than you think, if you start today, you will wake up. The alarm will go off. And you will get up. Not because you made yourself, not because you summoned your courage or remembered your goals or found a surge of motivation. You will get up, because that is simply what you do. And you will sit down to work without negotiating, without delay, without the long internal conversation about whether today is a good day for it. You will do the work, because that is who you are now. That is the day the training is produced. That is the day discipline stops feeling like effort. And on that day, everything changes. Not because the world changed, not because your circumstances became easier, but because you changed. Because the training changed you. Because you stayed in the grind stage long enough to reach the groove stage. And you stayed in the groove stage long enough to reach the identity stage. And from that place, from inside the trained and capable and reliable mind, a life of real achievement becomes not just possible, but natural. This is available to you, not to someone else, not to the people who appear to have some gift you were denied. To you, right now, with exactly the mind you currently have. That mind can be trained. You are capable of training it. And the training starts the moment you decide it does. So decide. Not tomorrow. Not when things settle down. Not when you feel more prepared. Now, do the first deliberate thing. Show up for the minimum viable commitment. Win the morning. Declare the identity. Reflect in the evening. Do it tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. And 90 days from now, come back to this moment in your memory and notice how different you feel. Notice how much the training has changed you, because it will have changed you. The training always changes you. That is the whole point. That is the whole beautiful, difficult, entirely possible point. Train your mind. Train it hard. Train it every single day. And one day soon, discipline will stop feeling like something you have to do. It will simply be who you are. And who you are, built on the foundation of a trained and capable mind, is more powerful than anything this world can bring against you. Now go do the work.